All right, and we're live.
Okay.
So we'll have a lot of people listening now, but we'll also have a lot of people that will come back in later. We had one person waiting just to watch and see what we're doing. So
Okay.
we're going to pop that back up again. So hello, everybody. I don't know if people are going to be watching now or watching later. Most of you know who I am, but I want to always start with the people that I bring to talk to you. And Nicole, Dr. Nicole, tell them who you are and what makes you awesome, like why I would want to bring you in. Tell them how great you are. Don't be shy.
I could tell them who I am. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Nicole Montero. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm a business owner. I own my own mental health practice, which is called Center for Healing and Development. I am a world traveler. I love to travel. I've written a travel book called The Zen of Travel and Being in the World. I am also an international foodie. So I have a cookbook called Global Bites, Delicious and Healthy Recipes from Around the World. And I also have I'm a serial entrepreneur. So my other business is called Le Feminin, and it's encouraging women to get in touch with their femininity through understanding traditional cultural practices with a modern twist. So we sell all kind of accessories.
I didn't know about that one.
Oh yeah, you have to like us on Facebook and Instagram, Feminine Culture on Instagram. We have all kind of African and global inspired accessories, exotic perfumes and incenses, waist beads, jewelries, clothes, everything. So, but more importantly, I am a global citizen. And I see myself as a citizen of the world and connected to everything that happens, not every single thing, but I feel invested and connected to what's going on in the world. You know, I've traveled the world and I have a love of all kind of different countries, societies, and cultures. And so that's me. Anything else? What do you want to know?
Wow, that was quite a mouthful. I mean, you've got so many hats that you wear that it gets a little exhausting sometimes just trying to keep up with you.
Well, you know, I used to compartmentalize and fragment who my like different parts of myself, but I realized they're all part of me. And to me, they're seamlessly connected. So it might seem like, oh God, wait, my friends will be like, well, where are you now? Or what are you doing now? But for me, it's all connected. And if I try to keep one out, that's not good. Like when I bring them all to the table, that's when I feel complete.
Well, what parts of you do people have a hard time reconciling?
Not reconciling, but you know, I think it's just that people are used to people doing one thing, you know, but we do have examples. I just saw a video like the other day, I think on Twitter, of Idris Elba, or some people call him Idris Elba, the actor.
Right.
I have loved his acting since The Wire and Sometimes in April, that movie about the Rwanda.
Sometimes in April, I don't know about that one.
You have got to see it. Don't watch Hotel Rwanda. That Sometimes in April is like a really deep film about the Rwandan genocide. And he was in, a lot of people don't know he was in that. But he's also a DJ. Now he came out with he's a I guess a reggae artist, dance hall or whatever. He has a CD. Like he does a lot of stuff, and he talks about how, you know, it's all him. You know, you don't have to just do one thing. A lot of people are multi-talented. Now, sometimes you have to focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
But, you know, it's not like you have to be one thing for the entirety of your life.
Wow. Wow. I can kind of understand what you mean. People look at you in one vein and they want to be able to say, oh, that's what you are, because compartmentalization it's how a lot of people deal with the world. And I know there aren't many people who can wear lots of different hats at the same time. And for some people, it can be difficult, especially if they're a static person. But, you know, all we can do is try to lead from the front.
Mm-hmm.
You know, show them exactly who we are and what we can do, and give them a reason to do it with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want to go to something that I had no idea you were going to talk about. This is something I had no real understanding, blah, 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 when you talk about being feminine, because, you know, you're one of the most educated, successful women. You're also a family woman, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I'm a Muslim wife and mother.
So I've had a few women that I know that have really focused on talking to women about femininity. Now, I know that it's something that a lot of women talk about. I don't know how many men get privy to those conversations. Do you feel like there's a gap to be filled? Do you feel like there's something that right now women don't have? Because, you know, I can tell you my opinion, but I'd love to hear yours first.
Okay, and then you're going to tell me yours?
Yes.
Okay. I do feel there's a gap to be had, particularly, I'll just speak from the context of the US, United States of America, and women of color, Black women, I think have, because of historical circumstances in this country, have had to cast aside their connection to their femininity or their softer side or their more vulnerable side in favor of kind of being like the workhorses of society and of the community. And it's almost like this, I always talk about the strong Black woman phenomenon, which has been cast on us. And now a lot of us have internalized it to the point where we are literally getting sick from this. And for me, femininity is about being in touch with other sides of yourself that aren't always strong. You know, we have this thing like the educated, strong, accomplished woman, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I am that. You know, obviously I wouldn't have achieved things in my life if I weren't strong and focused. But again, I'm not a one-dimensional person. And throughout history, I've read a lot about even feminine archetypes, like models of femininity. There's no one model. It's not just, you know, you have different ways of being feminine throughout history and society. But one of those is understanding that femininity is an energy that takes different forms, but also can be contrasted and complementary to masculinity. So, you know, it's not like you have to encompass it all. I feel like we just have gotten so away from the idea that you can have, and you got to be careful with this, you know, because people, whenever you...
No, I'm listening.
Whenever you say, like, it's kind of like, it feels like it's anti-feminist. If you say femininity in a complementary relationship with masculinity, or if you see masculinity as leading feminine, it's okay to be in the background or to follow or to be, you know, take on that aspect of feminine energy. But, you know, it's kind of like in a politicized environment, that seems like the wrong thing. People don't want to hear that. They're like, oh, you know, women have a history of oppression. Why are you advocating things that would have women not being in the forefront, girls rock, and all this kind of stuff? But I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about personal fulfillment. And I feel like when women who want to be in touch with their feminine qualities, which might include being more in the receiver background, complementary to masculinity, that it's okay to let masculinity lead, those kind of things. I think that women should be encouraged to do that. You know, and I wrote an essay called "What Traveling the World Has Taught Me About My Femininity." You know, and you get to
tell me that, because I'm going to definitely link you to that, because what you said about well, first, having traveled the world like you and seen different political movements and things, I don't know that feminism has ever been good for any brown people. I don't know that feminism is good for anyone outside of very specific parts of white culture that have access to different things that Black, Indigenous, and other brown women don't have access to, as far as even safety nets. If things
yeah.
You know, it's a very interesting thing, because there's a woman, what is her name? I'll have to find her online, and she does courses and talks to women about how it's okay, because you get...
Are you talking about Wife School?
No.
Okay. There's a bunch of them coming out now, which I love. Some of them I don't like. but that's cool. I don't have to like everything. Some of them, but I like the trend. I love the trend.
Well, there's a woman, she does podcasts and things, and she often has women just enroll with her. And one of the things she talks about was knowing your value, about how I'll be 42 this year. And as I rapidly approach maturity, you know, having loved and been loved by women and understanding how the world works, I can tell you that the women that I graduated with, grew up with, the majority of them that really went full tilt and embraced, I don't need and I'll be fine. And take it for
are not happy.
None of them are happy.
Yeah.
None of them are happy because there's this thing where, first and foremost, men aren't being taught to be men, and women aren't being taught that being a woman is okay no matter how you define it. I know so many women that said, I would have liked to just find a husband, but the women in her family just started kicking her ass. I know so many women that found out you can't have everything. No one can. And they find out at 30 that you don't have the options at 20 that you did. You know, and it gets crazy. It gets crazy. And I see, you know, because of the decisions that not just society tries to make for us, but the decisions that we make, so many Black and brown families are way outside of the loop as far as what we're able to do, what we're able to see.
Yes. No, sorry, my charger. I had to get my charger, but I could hear you. No, I agree. I think that's a message that's been given, particularly if you look at Black women in America, because of the socioeconomic situation. And if the men were taken away or were not able to be there, then a way to cope is to say, I don't need a man. And that was the reality for many, you know, people. They did do it alone. Whew, I ran upstairs, sorry. But it doesn't, you know, a lot of people are trying to reverse that ideology. And what usually, from a psychological perspective, when you fight so hard against something, it's because it is important to you. But to cope with not having it, you tell yourself you don't need it. You don't want it. It wasn't important anyway.
So where does the community start? Where does anybody start with the chaos out there of everybody can be by themselves? And, you know, a lot of young men come to me and they say, hey, Wateef, you know, talk to me about women and how can I talk to women this way and that way? And, you know, you always seem to have these great women around you. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you understand, you know, it's like giving a child a gun sometimes. They understand that because people aren't that different, there are a very specific set of behaviors and practices that do make you attractive to women. But then I try to explain to them, the purpose of the game, so to speak, isn't to play the game until you die. It's to figure out which pieces fit, because nobody gets to play the game forever. And a lot of men take for granted, do we have a longer playing time in the field? Yes, but you got to really understand that at some point you may want to be able to use that experience to discern who are the right ones to keep around instead of constantly churning through, you know. And then they hit a certain point in their life and they're like, I don't have anybody I can trust.
Yeah.
You know, I know so many men my age that don't know any women that they've ever been able to trust because they've never been able to discern or figure out, well, women I can use. Sure, I learned how to talk to women and use them, but what if I use my knowledge of women to figure out not all women are, you know, gold digging, you know, whoremongers, that some of them actually are smart. Figure out the ones that you like. But they have that thing in their head where I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna use this toy and I'm just gonna keep turning through them. And they figure out, well, I've never trusted a woman. But
yeah. Well, no, somebody needs to start the way we're talking about femininity. They need to have masculinity training, because it's sad to think that a man would get to middle age and not know a woman he could trust. I think that's a real loss, not for the women necessarily that he's played around with, but that's a loss for that man. So, I mean, only another man can help him with that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And when you come from a situation where so many of us have been caught by the system, the institutional traps, their own misjudgment, you know, when you see so many men that didn't have a dad, didn't have an uncle, didn't have, you know, my parents were just as flawed as anyone else's, but I had them. And I didn't know how important that was until I got older. That my dad would sit down and talk to me about the mistakes he made. You know, that I didn't know that a lot of men didn't have that. I didn't know until I was an adult how unusual it was to have people that I'm related to whose fathers I've never seen or known.
Wow.
And as an adult, I look back and that made no sense. Like I have cousins that I played with as a child. I've never seen their father.
Wow.
You know, my dad wasn't always greatest, don't get me wrong. And my parents were just as flawed as anybody else. But until I got older, I didn't even know just having him there to say, hey, here's some mistakes I made. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And it just creates those situations of pure chaos.
Yeah.
Pure chaos. And what do you do from there?
Well, I think you're right. You're saying, what can the community do? So much of the chaos, we're talking always from the top down, like the government, the system, this, that, and the other. But the power and control we have is from the bottom up. So it really starts in your own domain, your own home. And that's why a lot of people are saying, if we can stabilize households, then that's a revolution right there, like to combating, my interest is in trauma. And so much of the trauma that I've seen or treated, it starts in the home.
Now, are you talking about trauma? Trauma is a big word. Help me understand.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking more like individual psychological trauma, which could be any event or series of events or incidents that overwhelm your capacity to cope. So we can cope with stress as humans, but trauma sort of is like catastrophic. It overwhelms us. And it includes things like abuse. That's one of the most common types of trauma that people experience. Childhood abuse, physical, emotional, sexual abuse as a child. And that starts in the home. And how does that start in the home? If you don't have a stable household, or if, I had posted something about Michael Jackson, but one of the things is people who want to abuse others look for children who are vulnerable. Maybe the family is not going to notice or
not care.
Yeah, basically, not even not notice, but not care. Exactly.
If we're going to go down the pop culture route with the Michael Jackson and the R. Kelly, one of the things that you've seen I tried not to get sucked in, but I end up talking about these things. But the more and more you read is that they were predators, but it's kind of like in those old 1980s science fiction movies where there's a town and everything seems to go right. Then you figure out, well, once every 10 years, they sacrifice all the children to this evil thing. There are people who are willing to just hand their children over to monsters, who I believe should stand trial. I believe that all the parents who would willingly leave their child with an adult that's not their dad, how dare you get off scot-free on that? How dare you not be held accountable as someone who knew that that's inappropriate? And it's when you see that there are women in the R. Kelly situation that came out and flat out said, he told us that he was going to help jumpstart our career, and for the low price of, I'm going to take your child's innocence and childhood. I have some younger friends here in Brazil who know Michael Jackson as an adult, but my age bracket, we grew up with Michael Jackson. I said what a lot of people forget, and you can look this up online. There are countless successful people now who Michael Jackson's whose careers were started by Michael Jackson when they were children. A lot of people don't remember that. The most recent example I just gave, because he was in the news for a frivolous lawsuit, was that guy Alfonso something from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He started in a Michael Jackson commercial, and he's one of many that started being with Michael Jackson.
Wow. I didn't realize he had,
That was him, all the Macaulay Culkins and all those kids that, you saw with Michael Jackson. People forget there was a point where he was Oprah. He was before Oprah. He was Oprah. He had that. Arguably, because the world was smaller, I would say he had more power. I remember days when people wouldn't come to school or go to work because when a Michael Jackson album came out, they would tell their boss, I'm not going to work tomorrow. I'm going to buy this album. You can fire me.
Yeah. We all loved Michael Jackson. We loved him. He was a genius. And
then, can we say we didn't know?
We knew, and that's the sad thing about it. People are up in arms now. He's not here to defend himself. Well, you knew back then, and you either weren't educated enough about childhood sexual abuse, or you didn't care, or you were willing to overlook it. And we all knew. Because nobody that I know would let their child spend the night with Michael Jackson.
Well, at what point is it ever acceptable for an adult male to have sleepovers with children? Even if we take everything else out of the equation, the question becomes, when is that okay? Give me a situation where that seems like a reasonable thing to have happen. And no one can, because it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
And where do you go from there? Now we see the fallout. And I wonder, You know, they say hurt people hurt people. I wonder how many other people get damaged along the way between that happening to them and their ability to come to terms with it and maybe try to get some justice. What happened in between? How many lives got damaged on the way to their wholeness? I don't know the correct word.
Yeah. No, that's the cycle continuing. So that's the real tragedy of all of us turning a blind eye, is that it's like a domino effect. So many victims, so many people become victimized because it is a cycle. Exactly. You're exactly right. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. I kind of pulled back talking to him because I love Michael Jackson, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to speak out on the truth. But I realized that most people don't want to face the truth. I learned that the hard way. Like, I thought everybody could understand things are complex. He could be a musical genius. He could be somebody that the community loved. He could be all of these things. He could also have been someone who, you know, was a sexual predator towards children. Those two things can exist. We could also have a case where, yes, we know the system tries to take down Black men, but it could also be the case that he did do the things that he's accused of. But people want to put everything in a box that is either or. You know, I mean, we could say that R. Kelly is a musical genius. I Believe I Can Fly. Like, those songs, his inspirational songs, are amazing. It's also the case that we all know, everyone in Chicago knows, that he went after young girls, and he's a sick man. The two can coexist. But I realize that most people are very one, you know, like they can.
First thing we talk about.
Yeah.
Well, the question is, should we separate the art from the artist? Do we look at them and say, well, because they did these horrible things that they were convicted of, or in R. Kelly's case, convicted of, and say, oh, flashback. Remember the Boondocks episode where they said they had that speech at the end where he said, every day the American justice system locks up thousands of innocent Black men, but R. Kelly is not one of those men. And they talked about this years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, on the Boondocks, he said R. Kelly is not one of those men. But are we able to separate the artist from the art? Are we able to say, I can play Off the Wall and not feel guilty about it? Because the unique situation we are in as Black, Brown, Latino Americans, if we were to have to turn our back on everyone who did us dirty, we would be standing in a room staring at each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think
finally eyebrow.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think, but I think it's a conversation worth having. I'm not into cancel culture. Like, it got crazy to the point where anybody who expressed any empathy towards R. Kelly, people would be on Twitter like, I'm canceling, she's canceled. You know, she's standing with the pedo. I'm not into that. I'm into, I can't say whether we should separate the man from the music. It would be, I can say for me personally, it's easier for me to separate R. Kelly, to not listen to R. Kelly than it would be for me to never listen to Michael Jackson. And I don't know that that is the end goal. I think it's a conversation. I think there are people who feel that, and we can have that conversation, that dialogue with them. I think it's more important to just come to terms with what they likely did, and try to like understand where we went wrong as a society, as a community. I'm more concerned with that than like not listening to their music. I understand mute R. Kelly though, because he was still making money off of his music to kind of continue to victimize girls and women. But again, I don't think it's a hard and fast. I think it's a conversation worth having.
Here's the interesting part. Remember, R. Kelly wasn't up for target practice until his money ran out.
So they,
Remember,
okay.
He had to get bailed out of jail. He didn't have the money to bail himself out.
Yeah.
He had to get bailed out
By a woman and bailed him out. Yeah.
And look at the people around him. He can't afford a quality staff to try and even defend or help him. So target practice, remember, Michael Jackson died. You know, they say, oh, Michael Jackson died poor. Poor for Michael Jackson is more money than the next 1,000 people you know making the rest of their lives. That's like saying he went from a billionaire to a couple of hundred millionaires.
Yeah, so, exactly.
You know, he was never open season because we understand money purchases freedom. In the United States, it's that chaos when you understand, well, wait a minute, every day, it's like talking about, what was his name? Jesse Smollett.
Oh.
I heard someone on a round table. Anybody who listens to the Grapevine, look up the Grapevine on YouTube. Okay. It's a great show that they have these big round tables. And one guy said something interesting. He says, no matter how fishy the Jesse Smollett story was in the beginning, and everyone knew it was fishy. He said, what point did we start believing the Chicago Police Department aren't capable of doing something bad to him, aren't capable of lying? He said, I would believe almost anything by default before the Chicago PD because of their history of doing everything. I mean, I remember years ago reading about how they had special torture rooms that turned out to be true and all the things they've done. He's like, so at what point did we start by default believing the police? Now, don't get me wrong, Jesse screwed up in a way that he has no friends left. He has no any community, be it black, gay, actor. It's people who put their neck on the line for him, find out, oh, well, it was all bullshit. That's
the part that gets me. And the part that gets me, it's not about believing the Chicago PD because, you know, my mom is from Chicago and she can tell you about it. But it's about the fact that you can't, it's a betrayal to the community that supported him. That's how I look at it. And to me, it's about, when you say, where can we start? We can start with integrity. I'm not on the Chicago police's side, but I'm damn sure not on the side of standing out justice for Jesse. No, I'm through with that because there was a lack of integrity that you kind of exploited our trust and our belief in you. I didn't think the story was, I didn't interrogate the story. I heard it. I felt sympathy. Wow. Oh my God, this is horrible. They need to find this out. I didn't even think that, like, to be suspicious. I left it where it was and kept it moving. So I think there were a lot of people who just, you know, were invested in having empathy for him. And I think myself and others feel like that was exploited. I really do. That's why I'm not really, you know, I'm not for him in this case. I hope that he's okay. You know, I hope he doesn't go to jail. I think that would be ridiculous. But, you know, as far as us saying that the system was against him, you know, you did this to yourself. You were a privileged man that came from a great family, great career, multi-talented. You had more shots than a lot of people out here. So, you know, that's where I kind of, you know, nobody targeted you. You did it. Nobody, Chicago PD didn't come into your house and make you do this. You weren't even on their radar. So that's the part that kind of gets me.
Again, we live in an upside down world. We live in a time where you have to question whether or not a Black American really was racially attacked. Like, to make that up after all the things that so many of us have gone through, it's like, why would you choose that? Why would you pick that to be the raft you sailed into hell on? I mean,
yeah.
And did he?
And I don't get it what the motive was. I mean, I'm hoping that there's more to the story. They keep saying it's going to come out because it just makes no sense to me unless you are completely. I haven't looked into his case if he was unraveling emotionally, mentally, or had a drug problem or whatever. You know.
Oh, now are we just trying to give him a cushion to land on?
No. I mean, I spoke out very harshly when I said I need a support group for this. He lied about this. Like, I was so, you know, I spoke out very strongly against what he did. So, you know, I believe in accountability. I don't think he should go to jail. That's ridiculous. But I believe, you know, in accountability for what he did.
And there is no answer. We'll never get the entire answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll never get everything about what happened because he'll never be able to talk about it. And even if he did say something, how many of us are going to believe him? No matter what he says.
Yeah.
You know, that's a harsh truth to know that his name is mud forever.
Yeah.
You know, you asked a question in one of your groups. You said something. I'm trying to think. You talked about In Philly.com, they had an article. After getting shot, a Philadelphia lawyer is looking for a safer place for he and his family to live. And I'm going to quote you here. You said, "I completely understand this. You want to stay and be an asset to the city and community. But at the end, is it really worth it? Does it even make an impact? Does the neighborhood even notice or benefit? Or are you just putting yourself at risk? I ask myself all the time." Ellipses. I like the clever ... ellipses. Because you don't know what we're using. I'm a writer and an editor. And so people get happy with that ellipses. People get, I mean, I think that you should be issued a certain amount at the beginning of every year. People get too happy with it, but.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to use a term that I know is not the right term, but I'm going to use this as a bookmark for people who have accomplished their goals and lived their life better than they would have had they not left where they were educationally and professionally. I'm going to say you and I, and there's a terrible way I'm going to put this. I'm just trying to use placeholder, okay? Can we say made it? Okay. The question becomes, for people who made it out of any place, I've been asked in the past, I was born in Niagara Falls, New York. It's a sleepy little town. 2 generations ago, it was amazing. But now, you know, I don't know if you ever heard of Love Canal.
Is that a show?
Love Canal was one of the greatest environmental atrocities in the United States.
Oh, no.
The huge amounts of toxic waste that they shoved under the ground, paved over, I'm giving you the TLDR, paved over and sold it to poor people.
Wow, so I didn't know that.
Cancer clusters of strange diseases. I mean, it's a horrible, it was a horrible thing the government did.
Okay.
And when I graduated, all my friends and I, the ones that went out and got to university and did some things, you know, we were, especially in my 20s and 30s, we're always contacted by groups and organizations saying, you made it, you did these things, you're on this upward trend, could you come back here and help us? And it's a hard sell, because I looked at that article you posted when he said, do I really want to do that? That's a hard sell.
Yeah. It is, because the problems are so entrenched, and sometimes, you know, you ask yourself, is it worth it to get on a sinking ship? Now, if you would get on that ship if you felt your presence could bring the ship back afloat. But if it's just going to bring you down with it, I don't always think it's worth the risk. And I heard somebody say, well, that's the problem, you know, Black professionals, they always leave the neighborhood. There's no role model. No, that's not the problem. A lot of times you will be in the neighborhood and people don't necessarily, you know, value what you have to bring to. Nobody's saying, oh, wow, she got up and she's going to work.
You're going back in and out. Can you give me that last sentence again?
People aren't necessarily looking at your example. You're thinking you're setting an example or being positive or trying to sweep up the, you know, streets or whatever. People don't necessarily see it like that. They might see you as a target, or they might be so entrenched in their own problems. And, you know, if you come through the hood, the stench of weed all day, every day. So look at how that's somebody's mind is being sort of like, they're being nullified to not even take action in their life. And I'm not talking against people who do whatever they do, but you have to admit, when people are not employed gainfully, they're not really doing much, and you give these people marijuana all day, every day, it's not a good combination. And I'm saying this as someone who lives in the community. I'm not talking as an outsider. I live in a community where my family has owned property for 75 years. And we've seen the ups and downs of the neighborhood. And I feel like it's about to be regentrified, because they usually let it go down before they kind of come in and gentrify it. So I'm talking from observations. There are groups of young Black men that are on various corners that literally can be there from sunup to sundown. And you see either the drug dealing or smoking weed or just sitting there kind of like in a zombie state. And you have to think, then you see, so those are like 20 to 30-year-olds. Then you see the old heads walking through with all of the kind of, you can see the medical issues, the diabetes, the blood pressure kind of real.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to, before I forget about this, I was having a discussion with a friend who disagreed with me, But I want your opinion because, again, you're smarter than we are in this situation. Even though you're not a physical doctor, you are a mental doctor. I said that there is a look of poverty. That wearing a business suit or a tank top, there are certain things that being poor does to a person physically that let you look at them and just say, that person is extraordinarily poor. And I believe that part of it is the way they look physically. You can look into someone's face and eyes, and everything you do leaves a receipt somewhere in your body. Do you think that I'm just too big in my own head?
No, I think there are studies that show the connection between poor health and poverty. There's a health disparity. Poverty, first of all, disconnects you from appropriate health care, at least in the US. Secondly, you are also more likely to be engaged in behaviors that are not good for your health, whether it's food deserts in the hood where you can't get fresh fruit. You go to the corner store, you're always eating junk food, or you are engaging in the smoking, unhealthy eating, dabbling in drugs. These things are perpetuated by poverty. It's like a cycle with poverty in that. And one time I went to the Social Security office to do something for my aging grandfather. He was 104 when he passed. I went to the Social Security office for him. It was so sad. That thing smelled like a smokehouse. So what you see is people there getting disability benefits who are they're targeted to be sold cigarettes, unhealthy foods, wine, liquor, all these corner store, these things that you see in poor neighborhoods, that is targeted to poor people. And that's why you see that look of poverty, because it's the health behaviors it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They put it in the hood so you can get sicker. You can't afford to get the medical care. You get sicker. Yeah, you're right. No matter how, I don't think there's anything wrong with that statement. Maybe the person thought you were making a judgment when it's more of an observation.
Well, I know that people ask me all the time, I have relatives and friends who I often have to reiterate because my age didn't matter to me until I turned 40, because now I love telling people how old I am. I'm like, hey, I didn't care when I was 30, but hey, do you know how old I am? But one of the advantages I've had is I've lived outside of the United States for most of my adult life. Every place else in the world, junk food is extraordinarily expensive, but for me to go to the market or the store, like I live in Brazil, every Sunday I can go to a market, buy 2 giant chickens, a bag of vegetables that I will not eat in a week, a bag of fruit that I will not eat in a week for 50, 75 US dollars. And in America, I know everyone that I know that goes back to the United States, you can go back for a month and you're going to gain 10 pounds.
Yeah.
The airplane's like, here you go.
And health is a status symbol in the US, whereas it's just, you have to go to whole paycheck, as they call it, Whole Foods, and spend $400. And it's, so you're right. It's the opposite around the world. It's the opposite. I've lived, in so many countries, and to buy the processed foods, it's like you have to be borderline rich to buy that junk food.
Well, have you, in the countries you've gone to, I'm not a big fitness person, but I work out, train in jiu-jitsu. I'm going to start kettlebells. I love lifting weights. In the gyms where I go to here in Brazil, the outdoor gym or the indoor gym, I'm not the oldest person there. There is a man there with white hair who's doing free-handed chin-ups, and I just look at him and just think, I just want to sit back and take notes because I hope I'm there I'm his age.
Yeah.
But one of the things Brazilians are known for is they are a vain people. And you can take that for better or for worse, because they also, they lead the world in cosmetic surgeries and all kinds of other things, but they take looking good seriously. I live in a semi-middle class neighborhood, and there are 4 exercise gyms within 3 blocks of my house, and they're all full all the time. And it gets, you go back to America, and then it becomes, oh, this is what it's like eating here, or trying to just go to the store and buy a fresh roasted chicken, and let's see how that costs. The broccoli and some spinach. Let me know how that works out.
No, you're right. There's much more of an egalitarian, like in most of the developing countries, quote unquote, that I've been to, people are outside exercising. It's not a matter of money, but here it's seen as you have to have money to be healthy. But overseas, people are walking. They're all when I was last in the Cape Verde Islands, there's so many outdoor parks that have built in, like the monkey bars, the little things that you can do your calisthenic exercises. You don't have to pay money. You just go there and do that. Then you go down the street, pick up a piece of fruit. You go home, you're going to have a homemade meal that's like some kind of stew, bean and vegetable stew. So it's a very holistic lifestyle naturally. Whereas here in the US, you have to pay somebody hundreds of dollars to teach you how to have a holistic lifestyle, just to go to whole paycheck and buy organic food for $500. I just like, it's so upside down. And it creates a mentality where people feel like they can't do it. I've heard so many people say, well, I don't have money to get fit. And I'm looking like, this is Philadelphia. We have one of the most beautiful park infrastructures. Fairmount Park, it spans throughout the city. But when you go to the part by the river called the Schuylkill River, it's beautiful. You know what you see? What is the race of the people you see most there?
Ooh.
You can imagine. It's like an invisible barrier, even though it's free for all. I see like our people here in Philadelphia have an invisible barrier, feeling they cannot cross. It's like going to the other side of the train tracks.
Mm.
Don't see a lot of people, or all the free things that we have in the city. It's very racially most of the things I do in the city are very racially segregated. Whereas I might be one of a few persons of color with my kids there.
Wow. Yeah, we won't even get into the colorism issues. That's another conversation. Here's a question though, because I know you travel quite a bit. Are you and the husband ever going to consider anchoring the family someplace else, or are you committed to the American experience?
Oh, no. This is just temporary. You have to do what you have to do. We were last in Botswana. So then we came back here. I was expecting, but no, this is just, you can build things here to get them running until I'm not going to say what all our plans are right now, but yeah, no, there's no commitment to the American experience or whatever. It's just what it is right now. But like I said, I see myself as a global citizen. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't think you would.
No, I have heard people who do feel that way, which I find those discourses kind of odd. When people are like, I don't know. It's just interesting I know you're in a lot of travel groups as I am, and hearing some of the things that people are saying about traveling, or they don't want to go. They have to make sure that the place is friendly towards Black Americans before they go. And I think that should be one of the last things on your list when thinking about.
There is no place to stay for us.
You might as well stay home then.
Who told them there was going to be a place we can go which is going to be safe? That's not how it works right now.
Yeah. I think you need to, and the number of people saying that who then do things like buy a plane ticket before they know if they have to get a visa, or never think about travel and like there's certain things you need to think about when you travel. The last of which is, are they going to care about me as a Black American? I just think that there's so much to gain out of travel besides going somewhere.
A lot of people don't know is the same television that tries to convince Americans that all Black people are shiftless, lazy criminals waiting to eat all your fried chicken and rape white women. If we know they're lying about us, why would you believe what they said about other countries? Because traveling the world, I can safely say to you, no one looks at Black Americans as the face of the oppressor or the person who came and raped their country for minerals, the person who dropped a bomb on them. No one sees us that way.
Yeah,
we can go and do things that others can't.
Yeah.
We are seen as successors of a long legacy, and we are seen as survivors of American imperialism, just like other people.
Yeah, exactly. If people even get that deep with it, a lot of times it's just, it's a person-to-person connection,
right?
Where they don't even go that far. Like, I feel like a lot of people are anticipating, or even when I hear people talking about going back to Africa, and they get so mad. They say they don't want us there. They sold it. I'm like, the people you're meeting are not thinking about that. Okay. They are not or you're expecting, you're going to different parts of Africa, not recognizing you're going to a different culture. So you need to understand cultural immersion, cross-cultural contact, as opposed to somebody welcoming you home. You see what I'm saying? Like, people are, you got to just get out into the world and travel, and then you'll see all that stuff you were worried about or thinking about is actually pretty inconsequential.
Well, I'm going to make a hard pivot because there's no way to segue into it, because I talk about all the different hats you wear. And the three that I want to address the same question to, if we can maybe do three faces of this. One, you're a woman. Two, you're Black. Three, you're a Muslim, as is your family. Are you safe in the United States? Do you feel safe? Do you feel safe for your husband and children?
Wow, that's a deep question. That's a deep question. I feel safe because I feel, not because of the country, but I feel safe in my own, in who I am, if that makes sense. I've gotten to the point in my life where I try to just focus more on what I have control over, building communities that I do, or interacting in communities where I do feel safe. But it is scary. It's scary to worry about my husband or my father or any of my male relatives traveling at night. What could happen? You know, it's scary. It is scary. It's scary. My kids we're always at the mosque. So it's scary to think, you know, that the school my daughter goes to, some crazed maniac could come and try to shoot it up just to target Muslims, or, you know, it is scary, but those aren't things that affect my day-to-day life. I don't think about that. I don't ruminate on that. And I don't let it stop how I carry myself, how I move in the world. Because the other thing about it is, you got to get up off of social media. When you go out in the world too, you will meet a lot of great people as well. But you'll be on social media or the internet feeling like, you know, somebody's getting shot every 2 seconds. And it's just not the case. You got to go out and meet and interact with people and experience the good that's out there. That's not always the answer people want to hear, but I've gotten past my, like, all the time activist stage where, like, I'm up in arms about everything. And no, I'm about, you know, how can I move in the world that's authentic for me? And, but no, you know, there are definitely places where it's not even so much feeling safe, but where you'll feel more at ease than in America.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't fear, I don't go out the house fearing my safety, but I do think about my sanity and the sanity of my kids, and then this stressful, crazed society that is the United States of America.
Wow. I'm trying to, I talk a lot, but I don't even know how to, that was a great way to wrap it up. I want to say thank you for having this chat with me. You're somebody I want to talk to more. And also I want to have you when I have my big roundtable battle royales with a bunch of different people in different perspectives. I'm sure you've seen some of them. I hope you can come back. I know how busy you are and how busy I am. And hopefully we can talk about things that are a bit more cheerful. Oh, and the last thing I want to say, I hope you and the family can come down to Brazil one day. Come down and enjoy some.
Definitely. I would. Yeah, my brother's been there a lot because he practices capoeira and he's been down there a lot. But yeah, that would be amazing.
I'll tell you the best time to come. The 8 weeks before Carnival are the best time in Brazil, because Carnival, everyone knows what Carnival is, the big parade. But the 8 weeks before, all the schools and the samba houses, they have ensayos and live practices, and you can go watch some of the greatest performances while they're preparing, see all the songs they're considering, and the atmosphere is different. People bring their children to those. It's loud, but it's such a very good, different vibe that I don't go to Carnival anymore, but I'll go to all the different schools as they prepare.
Wow.
Stuff.
That would be amazing. I have to just tell you one nice story then. Speaking of samba and carnival, back in the day, I traveled to Japan with my dance company. It was a multicultural dance group. So I was performing African dance, we had Korean dance, and one of my friends was doing Brazilian samba. We became such good friends. That woman was an amazing samba dancer, and we just connected, and I used to go visit her in New York. So I have beautiful memories, and I would love to come and experience that.
The door is always open for you all.
Okay.
Plug your social media stuff.
Okay, you can catch me on Twitter at Global Maisha, GlobalMaisha. Also on Twitter at Chad Wellness, ChadWellness. That's my Center for Healing and Development. On Instagram at Chad Wellness, on Instagram at Feminine Culture, on Instagram at Zen Wanderlust Travel. Okay, so put that in the comments. They can get to all of them. We didn't get to everything, but yeah, you can find all of them.
I'll have to put it all in there.
Yeah.
You have a great day.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.